So if you guys want to just chit-chat, we're going to go live now, and then as soon as the feed clicks, I'll give you the high sign that we're
all right. So this is us
air.
pretending that we're having an actual conversation before we get the cue to talk on air. So I'm looking like I'm
when the time
you.
comes, just speak up because I have a hearing aid on.
Oh, I was going to ask you about it today.
I'm handicapped.
I'll try not to shout at you, though. That won't play
No,
well.
just don't move your lips slowly,
Right.
you know, but you can.
2, 1.
Right. I'll keep that in mind. Hi, I'm Bob Weide, and I'm about to say something that I never thought I'd say in my lifetime, and most of you probably thought you'd never hear in your lifetime, which is welcome to our Facebook live chat with Woody Allen, who only learned about 45 seconds ago that this actually was live. Is that right?
Yes, I thought this was going to be a chat that we would have, and it would be filmed or taped, and later I could go over the tape and the film and cut out all the embarrassing moments, leaving you with not enough material to go on the air with.
Well, now that you understand what we're doing, that this is actually part of Facebook on a scale of 1
now
through...
I hate the idea.
I was going to say, on a scale of 1 through 10, how nauseous are you at this particular
Well,
moment?
no one told me. I almost didn't make it on time. You know, I was supposed to get here at 2 o'clock, and unfortunately, my wife was driving downtown, and she offered me a lift, so I got here on time. But I didn't know it was live, so if I wasn't offered that lift, I'd have strolled casually down here looking in store windows, and I'd have shown up, you know, a quarter after 2 or 20 after 2, not thinking that you would be stuck here by yourself.
Yeah, having to vamp for 15 minutes.
Having to, to make excuses for 15 minutes and rely on your own personal resources.
Which are actually quite minimal. You have famously said that you are two with nature, but many people know that you're also two with technology. So I'm assuming that people who care about you and are looking out for you are trying to drag you kicking and screaming into the 21st century. Is that basically what's taking place here?
Yes, people that surround me tell me that, you know, I should get more involved in some way in social media. I mean, the whole idea is awful to me, and I have no intention of following up on this in any way. So if this is your shot to probe in any way and get answers to any questions, because you're not going to have this opportunity again.
So you're saying at the end of this, I shouldn't say join us next week?
Yeah, no, don't say that.
All right. Well, we should distinguish. I mean, there is the internet, and then there's social media. You're not a complete stranger to the internet, because I know you've gone on YouTube to look at clips of Bob Hope and Mort Saul and
yeah, I look on my phone sometimes if I'm bored, and I press the music or the YouTube, and I will look at Mort Saul or Jonathan Winters or Bob Hope, you know, comedians that I like or jazz musicians I like, and you know, it occupies my time sometimes, but that's it. I mean, I don't have a computer. I don't have a word processor. I don't know how to work those things. I can't turn on the television set in my living room. I can turn on the one in my bedroom, and that's the one I watch. But I would have no idea how to turn on the one, because it's not a simple thing. I'm one of those people who needs the television set with all the tape over all the buttons.
all the buttons that you aren't supposed to push. Yeah.
Because I'll always push the wrong buttons, and then it won't work, and then we have to call the people to come. And
That's called the old man guard, that you put the tape over the buttons so that your grandfather doesn't go around pushing the buttons. I remember once, not too long ago, you actually suggested that I Google something, which shocked me that you would even know what Google is. So some stuff has seeped in.
Yeah, no, I know how to Google. I can do the 2 or 3 elementary things on my phone. I can hear music on it, and I can Google on it. I'm in Google, you know, look up a word or something if I don't know it, and I can dial to YouTube on it, get the weather. Yeah, I can do about, you know, half dozen things on my phone, but that's it.
There's a guy who actually has a website called Woody Allen Pages. His name is Danny Yao. And I said to him, how do I even begin to explain to Woody what Facebook is? And he said, put it into terms he understands. Tell him it's like wild strawberries. You look up people from your past and you wind up regretting everything. So that's the best explanation.
Well, I know this. I know I have a Facebook page. I don't know what it means. Or it was said to me that you have to have a Facebook page. It really, you know, you're an entertainer and you make films and you play music. So I would have no idea how to access it, where it comes in, if it comes in on my computer or my phone or what the story is. I've never seen it, and I don't know what's on it. It's handled for me. The people that suggested it, you know, every now and then I'll get a phone call saying, can I stick a photo from your new movie on your Facebook? And, you know, since I'm oblivious to it all, why not? I mean, they tell me that it's a positive thing, but I don't have any interest in it whatsoever. I don't look at anybody's Facebook. I wouldn't know where to find it, or my own.
So we should disabuse people who follow your page of the notion that you're actually on there posting things and writing things. Other people put up photos and things, but you...
Right. I don't know what it is. I know that I will get calls, or they'll send me some photos and say, will you approve these photos? Can they be put on your Facebook page? And, you know, they're usually photos that have been approved already for movie stills. And I say, sure. Now, how this resonates in a positive way in my life or my career or my happiness in general, I've yet to see. I mean, there's been no discernible improvement in any way in my life since I've been on Facebook.
And we should not be expecting you to start tweeting anytime soon either, I imagine.
No, because I wouldn't know.
You don't know what tweeting
exactly
is,
how to do that.
Of course not. By the way, I should mention that people watching us right now on your Facebook page are actually able to send in questions, which we will pick a few. In fact, here's one right now coming up. This is from our comment section. Oh, now it's disappearing. It's moving. I'm sort of new at this too. Well, let's talk about Wonder Wheel. I actually want to ask you about the making of Wonder Wheel, but here's a question that will sort of preempt my question. This is from Devo Brown in Los Angeles, your favorite city. Your next film is titled Wonder Wheel. Have you ever actually been on the Wonder Wheel ride in Coney Island?
No, I'm not. The Wonder Wheel is a movie. It comes out at the end of the summer sometime. We shot it in Coney Island. It takes place in Coney Island in the year 1950 or 51 or 49. I can't remember, frankly. And I grew up near Coney Island, and I went to Coney Island frequently, but I was never one to go on any of those rides.
Really?
Because I'm, you know, I would be, first of all, I don't see any thrill to any of that, to get snapped around or turned upside down or revolved for some reason.
You get enough of that in your day-to-day life.
Yes, and to pay for it in Coney Island was, you know. So I've never been on the Wonder Wheel, and I've never been on the Cyclone, you know, and I could never stand, even as a little kid, the concept of the merry-go-round. I mean, that was really, you know, you get on those horses, they go up and down, and it goes, you know, I never saw what fun it was as a kid.
I can handle the merry-go-round, but I'm no good for the vomit rides.
It's
I don't
just
understand.
no fun, though. It's not, you know, the merry-go-round's not scary, but it's not enjoyable either.
What was the, I should know this actually, but what was the name of the roller coaster that you featured in Annie Hall as being over the house that Alvy grew up in?
It may have been the Cyclone. I can't remember. But that was legitimate. When I was making that movie, I had the character of Alvy Singer born and raised in the more Flatbush area of Brooklyn. And while we were out there...
Which is your neighborhood. I mean,
that was my old neighborhood, yeah. But while we were out scouting locations, we drove to Coney Island to look at some boardwalk things, and we saw this house under the Cyclone, under the, whatever the hell that thing was, a roller coaster.
Right.
And so I rewrote it instantly to make him brought up in that household that existed under the roller coaster.
You just thought that would be a funny idea to grow up in the house under the roller coaster.
Yeah,
so
it
you wrote
looked
the
great.
script.
I mean, when we're standing there in Coney Island looking at it, and you think, how can people live in that house? It's amazing, and the thing was exactly as you see it. The roller coaster would go right over it, you know, roaring and shaking everything, and yet there were people living in that house.
On the subject of Wonder Wheel, we're talking, by the way, because this is live, I'm just going to talk to the people here. It's warm in here and it feels like my glasses are steaming up. So will somebody tell me if you can see that on camera? Because I don't want to look at this later and say, how come nobody told me? So that's live television. Well, it's not television, it's Facebook. So speaking of Wonder Wheel and technology, well, let's back up a little bit. Your last picture, your last released picture was Cafe Society, and it was the first film that you shot digitally. You've been a film person all this time. There's still only a couple of holdouts. It seems like Scorsese and I think Tarantino.
I was not a holdout. I don't really care about any of that technical stuff. Whatever works is fine. I'm not a sentimentalist or a purist. You know, whatever works best for the film. And when I was talking to the cameraman, Vittorio Storaro, who's a brilliant cameraman, he was saying, you know, the future is here already and everything is digital, and why don't we make the film digitally? And so I said, fine, make it digitally. You know, to me, there's no, you know, no big deal about making it. You know, it looks beautiful either way. If you take the time to make it well and have a superb cameraman, the film looks beautiful whether it's shot digitally or shot on celluloid. If some people feel that they're traditionalists and they want to work scrupulously on celluloid, but how far do you carry that thing? Do you then just make films in black and white because that was the original tradition? Do you make just silent films? I mean, how far back do you want to go with that? So I don't really care. I'm, you know, however I can tell my story effectively is fine.
Did the change in technology impact in any way your day-to-day workflow on the set? Did it change anything?
No. It's if anything, it's a little bit easier because you don't have to stop for real changes with the celluloid and you know. But no, it's the same thing. You still have to light and take time, and the sun's got to be in the right spot, and the actors have to deliver, and you've got to think up all kinds of excuses for later. And no, it's no problem. In fact, you can do things digitally you could never do. If there's a building that's contemporary and it's a period piece, you can wipe it out digitally, and also more miraculous things. I mean, you see the miraculous effects they do in those movies, but when I was doing Midnight in Paris, I wanted the car to go faster in the street because the car went too slowly for my taste at the time. And I was able to, because it was digital, I was able to make the car go faster, but all the people in the street walked at the same pace. Years ago, with celluloid, this would not have been possible. If I sped up the car, all the people would walk funny and be sped up as well. But now the potential for graphic control is limitless.
But Midnight in Paris, you did shoot on film, correct?
Yeah, we shot on film, but then
like
we did all the post was digital, and you know the whole world of digital is just fine. I mean, it really is lovely.
Now you've sort of taken another step on Wonder Wheel because, as far as I know, this is the first time that you've had to use digital effects, CGI effects, to shoot period. You've certainly shot period a number of times before, but what was it about shooting on Coney Island now in 2016-17 that sort of put you in a situation where you had to paint things in? And
okay, it's a good question.
Oh, finally.
Yeah, first one. When you shoot period, And the films I shot, period, were, let's say, in New York or Los Angeles. You can find places that will look, period, with a little doctoring, a little sprucing up, or sometimes very little, actually. Whereas when you're shooting Coney Island in 1950, it's vast and open. There's a gigantic open sunlit boardwalk and a huge beach with thousands of people on it, and you can't find any trace of that now. That has to be recreated, and you can only do that digitally. You know, the parachute jumps have to work, the cyclones have to work, the Wonder Wheel, well, there is a Wonder Wheel now, but there are many rides and things that have to work that are just vestigial there now. Some of them exist, some don't even exist anymore. We have to put them in. And so it was a vastly more complicated process to make Coney Island in 1950 look like Coney Island in 1950 than to make New York or Los Angeles look like New York or Los Angeles in 1930 or 1920. You have a leg up in those places.
Mm-hmm. And didn't you tell me recently that you've even been able to do things where you need a lot of people, a lot of extras on a beach,
Yeah.
and you can take maybe 100 extras but make it look like 400 extras? Is that...
Yes, I did that in I think the movie To Rome with Love. We're limited because we don't have much money to make these movies. So let's say I can afford 100 extras. Because remember, the extras have to be costumed. You got to have makeup people from.
If it's
It
period,
isn't
yeah.
just a live body there. Every time you add an extra, you're adding more people, and it's a much more complex thing and expensive. So then you look out into the theater, let's say, and you got 100 extras. It's nothing. The theater holds 1,500 people or 1,200 people. So they have ways of taking the 100 and shooting them, and then moving the 100, switching costumes, and moving the 100 over here, and then blending it all together. So when you look out into a great theater, you're seeing 1,500 costume people. Now, if you stop the film and really take a magnifying glass and look at the faces, you might find some similarities, and you might not. I'm not sure. But, in the course of events, you don't. And these things are all helpful to someone like myself who operates generally on a very limited budget.
Right. I imagine one thing that's different for you now is traditionally you shoot a picture, you cut your picture, and the editing process is even faster now because that's digital. But here now you've got the extra step of waiting for somebody else to do these digital paintings and then showing them to you for your approval and all that. Are you in the process now where things are still coming in? Or is the
No, I
picture
just
locked?
finished this week. Yesterday we finished the mix, the music's all in, and the special effects are in, with the exception of maybe one or two minuscule ones which because I don't even notice myself, maybe in the background there's a contemporary lamppost or some little thing that we want to get out. But basically the picture's finished and will be viewable soon. And then what happens is the company that releases it, I believe Amazon in this case, but all the companies are the same, have these voodoo meetings where they decide what's the best way to put the film out to minimize the box office.
To minimize.
Yeah, because that's always what happens. It's always, we'll put this out in the summer because it'll be counter-programming to all the big movies, or we'll put this out in Easter, or I got a great idea, let's put this out in after the end of the summer. It's perfect. It's Academy Award time. They've always got some kind of story, and then they have a counter story of, well, all the kids are off from school in Easter, so they didn't go to the movies, or there was a heat spell and everybody went to the beach, or it's the Jewish holidays after, Labor Day and nobody goes to the movies, or we were in competition with the World Series or the Olympics. But there's always a story as to why their plan to to really squeeze the last dollar out of the box office of the picture has failed miserably, and the picture is awash in red ink.
So they have an excuse. They're covered either way. If it does well, they'll say we planned it, and if it doesn't do well, they say, well, there were these circumstances that we couldn't avoid.
It's usually the second.
You know, Take the Money and Run was 1969. That's coming up on, well, 50 years roughly, in a couple of years. And you've been making a film a year, averaging a film a year, so you're coming up on 50 films. What has most changed about just the day-to-day filmmaking or marketing, any aspect of it, from when you started till now, and what remains most consistent?
Well, the business has changed. Filmmaking is the same. I do the same thing now as I did on Take the Money and Run. I go in the morning, and instinctively, actually, you have a vision because you wrote the script, so you know what you want on the screen, and you execute to try and get as close to that vision as possible. You never really come that close to it, but you die trying to get as close as you can. So the process is the same, and you learn a little bit over the years, but you don't learn much because it's not a scientific process. Filmmaking is instinctive, and the little bit you learn over the years, you know, is not really very helpful, little helpful. But the actual business, when I first started making films, they were putting out, you know, all these modestly budgeted or reasonably budgeted films, and they were good stories. You know, Bonnie and Clyde came out, and The Graduate came out, and I mean, all those films that were aimed at adults, and often sophisticated adults, and they were intelligent, and they were you know, there was a vibrant film industry. Easy Rider came out then, and I mean a million films, all the Hal Ashby films, and so that kind of has drifted away slowly and slowly. The studios realized they would be better off if they spent $100 million making a film, because if that worked, they could make $1 billion or a fortune. Whereas if a film like Five Easy Pieces works, you know, they could make whatever, $100 million or $50 million, which became peanuts in their eyes. And so all these wonderful kind of interesting films and adult film, grown-up films, kind of faded away, and you get a couple of them during the year, but most of the film industry centers around making comic book movies and blockbuster movies, and I'm not criticizing them because that's where they make these big fortunes, but you know, I'm more interested in the cinema I grew up with, which were European films and more sophisticated American films, and films where a reasonable adult could go into the movie house and sit down, spend a reasonable amount of money, buy a ticket, and watch something that wasn't insulting to the intelligence or was either amusing or dramatic or thrilling or scary, but on a generally adult and sophisticated level. You don't get that in the same quantity anymore. You get some of it, but you don't get much of it, and that's what's changed. And it's been a tremendous kind of a change, a seismic change. As far as making films, no. I think if you asked, you know, Scorsese or Francis Coppola, people who are making wonderful films, then they would say they're doing the same things. Right. Yeah.
Yeah, it seems to be all about the opening weekend now, and if they determine that the people who go to a film during the opening weekend are young people and they want to see comic book movies, then that's what gets made. But then, yeah, exceptions do
sure, you
sneak
notice
through.
in the newspapers, they print the box office as news.
Yes.
And that's not why you make the film. Well, that's why the studios make the films. It's for them an industry. But the filmmakers are making the films not to crash the box office. They're making it because they want to make, hopefully, a work of art at the far end, but at least a decent film, or at least, in my case, a not embarrassing film. And so that's what you want to make, something reasonable. And the news of the week should revolve around the quality of the film, not its box office. That's peripheral or really, distracting.
I'm going to take another question from our comments section just to prove that we really are live and taking questions from our viewers. This is from Matt Bussey, who wants to know, you've expanded your shooting locations from New York to London to Paris, etc. What city would you love to film next?
It's hard to find cities. I first expanded by going to London because I couldn't get the money and the freedom together. I always, when I make a film, I like the people backing the film, sometimes it was studios, to put the money in a brown paper bag and then go away. And then, 6 months later, I give them the film. And that's the way I've always been able to work, having complete control of every aspect of the film. I wouldn't work in the film business in any other way. I would stop working in films if I didn't have that. And so it came to a point where the studios would say to me, look, we're not banks. If we make the film, if you're asking us for $10 million or something, $12 million, we want to read your script. We want to know who you're casting. We want to have some input. We're not just bankers. I, on the other hand, regard them as, at best, bankers, if not criminals, but bankers anyhow, at best. And I said, no, you can't read my script, and I'm not interested in your input. I said this politely. I'm not interested in your input. You can't come to the set. You can't see my dailies. You can't see anything till I give you the film. No, I said this nicely. And they said nicely, get lost. So I went to England, and in England, they said, we'll give you the money, and we're bankers. We don't care about input. That's all for the studios. We're bankers. So they bankrolled Match Point. And I made it the way I always make my films, with complete control. No one was near me. And then I found they wanted me to come back and do another one. And then I got a call from France, and I got a call from Spain, I got a call from different countries, Italy, saying, we'll give you what you want. You make a film here, make a film in Rome. So I was riding high. I was going to the great capitals of the world, taking my family. We would spend the summer there, living high off the hog, and I'd be making the films that I wanted to make. Then we found some suckers in the United States who were willing to play ball with me and put up the money and let me make the films exactly as I've always made them. And so I came back to the United States, and I've been bankrolled the proper way. Now, so when anyone ever talks to us about filmmaking, we say, look, here's what you're getting into. You can give us the money to make the film. We appreciate that. But you will not see the script. You won't know who's casting. You won't see dailies. Yes, you can come and visit the set once or twice. If you call us, we'll pick the days. But you won't have any real connection. Now, this doesn't sound like much fun to people, and yet there are people out there that do find that fun. And the fun that they get out of it, I think, apart from, their conscience feeling that they're patrons to someone that they believe in artistically, which in this case, laughably, is me. They patronize me like the Medicis did, and I'm able to make my film. And the fun they get out of it is we let them come to the opening night party where there's free catering. And we let them come to the Cannes Film Festival if we enter the film, and we let them, and they see their name on the screen, and we, you know, and there is a modicum of excitement to the, you know, the little perks that they garner from this procedure. But apart from that, you know, they do get some kind of thrill or some kind of satisfaction, not thrill, but satisfaction out of bankrolling, in this case, me, but in other cases, other people, you know, to do their art. They like my films, and they want to help me continue making them. And so that's the only way I make them. Now, if that closed down and no one would bankroll me without looking at my script or saying, well, we'd like to have a few changes, or we want to tell you who to cast, I just wouldn't make films. I'd write for the theater, or I'd write books, or, you know, or do my nightclub actor. I mean, but I mean, and it has nothing to do with being a control freak or anything. It has to do with, you have a vision when you do something, and the guys in the suits don't have the faintest idea about what's good or what's not good, or what will play or what won't play, or what's good acting or what's good storytelling. But many of them feel they do when they don't. Now, I don't have any talent or connection with numbers, with investments, with money. I'm the worst at that, and so I don't go to them and say, you know, I wanted some input here. I'm going to tell you where to invest your money and what stocks to buy and when to sell. And they shouldn't come and tell me anything about my film, because I know nothing about their thing. And they know, but the difference is, in many cases, they do think they know. You know, it's like everybody thinks he can play the drums. They can't come up and play the clarinet or the piano or something, but they see a drum set and they know they can do this. So they all run up and try and play the drums. It's the same thing with the movie. They all think that they can tell a story, or they know what's funny, or they know, you know, who's pretty or who's talented or who's, you know. And so you don't want to have anything to do with them, but you can't treat them contemptuously, as I am doing in this little spiel here.
None of them are watching, I'm sure it's okay.
You know, you have to try your best to con them, and most of the time you can't, because they're smart. And then once in a while you find someone either with a good heart who wants to back an artist, or someone who is silly with their money and just likes to give it out and lose it on films, you know, and that's how I've survived for many, many years without ever getting into that hit flop syndrome. I don't, you know, I could make 3-4 films in a row that don't make any money and still, you know, go on and make my next film, because one, I'm working inexpensively, so nobody gets crippled by the amount of money I lose for them. You know, maybe they lose a few bucks, but usually not. Usually they break even or make a few dollars. They don't get rich either. And, you know, it doesn't matter if I have a hit or by a hit or a flop. I'm talking box office strictly. I'm not in that game. I'm in a different game. I make films for different reasons. So I've been very lucky, and with that attitude of accepting whatever limitations I have to accept, I've been able to last and make many films and make them the way I want for many years.
Well, here's another question that's come in on our comment section. It's from Amazon Studios. They want to know, hey, jerk, who do you expect to finance your next film? Ooh, that's got to hurt.
Well, you know, I think Amazon is a perfect example of a company that's so successful that someone like me is peanuts. It's chump change. You know, these guys make billions. They're worth billions and billions and billions. So I come along and I make films for a pittance, so they can reach in their pocket, give it, and they give it to him and shut him up, and I make my film, and if it makes a few dollars, you don't even notice it on an Amazon, ledger, yeah. And if it loses a few bucks, they couldn't care less, and so, and the people up there like the quality of my work. They like the films. Not everybody does, but they do. So they give me, they feel no pain with me. So they're happy to give me the money and let me do my thing. Maybe I'll give them a nice film, and if I don't, they don't notice the hurt, and they move on to the next film, and maybe that'll be better. And over the years, I've had a pretty decent record. If you had bet on me from Take the Money and Run on till now, bet on each of my films, you would have made money. Now, you would not be rich, but you would have made money over the years, because most of them, in one way or another, have eked out a profit. Some have not, but those that have not been devastating. So a company like Amazon, they're so rich, and that falls under the rich patron of the arts sucker group.
The last month was the 40th anniversary of the release of Annie Hall, which I know means nothing to you sentimentally or emotionally, but a lot of people wrote about it. This was kind of a landmark film. Does it, my stock line about Annie Hall, by the way, what I always say is that every contemporary comedy director is still trying to make Annie Hall, except for the guy who actually made it, who thinks the film is overrated. You don't dislike Annie Hall, but no. Are you a little bit bewildered why that film has still so much sentimental appeal to people 40 years later, and they still make a big deal about it and talk about it? It's
likable to people. I mean, for some reason that film was very likable. I've made better films than that. Take them, not take them. Match Point is a better film.
I know you like Purple Rose.
Purple Rose of Cairo is a better film. The French one, Midnight in Paris, is a better film. Vicky Cristina Barcelona is as good. I've made films that were as good, but for some reason that's got some little charismatic, inexplicable hold on people. That in Manhattan too. All over the world, Manhattan plays all the time. It's got some, nothing that I did. I mean, it's sheer chance.
No, you just wrote and directed it.
No, but I mean, I make them,
and
I make them, and through sheer surprise to me, ones that I think are perfectly delightful, nobody's interested in, and another one that I think is, yeah, that's fine, they're ultra interested in.
It's all ultimately a crapshoot, right? I mean, you make your best attempt. Live Facebook, I've dropped my pages. I'm going to wait until you talk before I pick them up.
Okay, well,
so the camera can be on you.
It is a crapshoot.
But you put the same effort into every picture. And so I remember now when I was doing the documentary on you, I was in London filming the making of You'll Meet a Tall, Dark Stranger. Mm-hmm. And when I saw the finished film, I thought, that's a very good film. I liked that film. I enjoyed it a lot. It did very little business. Mm-hmm. And then Midnight in Paris came out, I guess, the next year, which did huge business. Was it that much a better film than Tall, Dark Stranger? I don't know.
Not necessarily a better film. It's got, there are films that just have more appeal than other films. Look, let's not take my films for the moment. The Bicycle Thief or Rashomon probably made a lot less money than, Titanic. But they are better films. They're greater masterpieces, by one can't even discuss them in the same breath because they're works of great art. So it isn't
Citizen
that,
Kane was not a big moneymaker when it came
right.
out.
It has nothing to do with the better film. It's not that Midnight in Paris is a better film. It's that audiences enjoy it more, and then you get into areas that become philosophical and aesthetic philosophy, and then you go in circles. For some reason, some films just have a commercial appeal, and others do not. Look, take Billy Wilder made that film Ace in the Hole. And he also made Some Like It Hot. I don't find Some Like It Hot amusing in any way at all. I find it a nothing film. I find Ace in the Hole a terrific film, terrific. Whereas Some Like It Hot gets all the adulation and all the warmth that people feel and all the box office. Ace in the Hole gets relatively nothing. You know, so then you get into personal taste and areas of aesthetic judgment, and so there's no way to think about these things.
You turned me on to the Sidney Lumet film, The Hill. I had dinner with our mutual friend Terry Zweigoff the other night. Mm-hmm. You recommended that film to both of us. Mm-hmm. We both saw it and loved it. We never even heard of the picture until you mentioned it to us. When people discuss Sidney Lumet's film, and there are many great ones, nobody talks about The Hill, and this was a little masterpiece.
Yeah, Sidney Lumet made this film called The Hill with Sean Connery and, I can't remember, Ossie Davis. Yeah. And it's Harry Andrews. It's a fabulous, fabulous movie. It did nothing when it came out, did absolutely nothing, and has never done anything over the years. It's the best film Sidney Lumet ever made. And it's the best film a lot of people could have ever made. It's a terrific movie. But it didn't have mass appeal or even small mass appeal, tiny appeal, you know, but it's great. And you watch it, you're riveted from start to finish. Everybody's brilliant in it. The story's great, told beautifully, shot beautifully. You know, there's no accounting for these things. So all you can do is what I do, not out of having thought this out, but instinctively. You make your film, you put it out, and move on to the next film. And what happens to it happens. People want to see it, they see it. Critics like it, they like it. They don't, they don't. People like it, they don't. You know, it's history. Once you're finished with it, it's gone.
But you're one of the few people who's literally able to do that. By the time a picture comes out and critics and audiences are responding to it, you're already either in production on your next picture or have even wrapped your next picture. So literally what is coming out in the theaters to you is already old business. So you can literally move on, whereas other people are looking at the receipts and worrying. And
I don't get the usual joy out of all of that stuff that people get. It's to me, it's not a big deal to have an opening night party and to put the film out and to go and see the film and stand in the back and hear the audience laugh or cry or watch the film again or wallow in its success or wallow in its failure. You know, once you're finished with the film, the fun is in writing the film and then casting it and getting the costumes and working with, you know, talented people and sophisticated, gifted men and charming, beautiful women and Cole Porter's music. And, you know, you work for a year on something or 6 months on something, and it's great and it's fun and you're solving solvable problems. So if I can't get my third act on the film right, it doesn't mean I die. You know, it just means that the film won't be good. And maybe I can solve that problem, and I think about it, and it's a fun way to spend your life. And then it's over. If you're thinking of rewards, if you're thinking of box office, or that critics have to like it, or that the public has to like it, you're dead. You're depending on things. You're getting your kicks in the wrong area. Your kicks have to be making the film, the actual joy of making the film and the disappointments and how you circumnavigate them and and solve the problems and all that. And then when it's over, you look at it and you think, oh God, when I wrote it, it was so great, and now it's so terrible. How did this happen? What went wrong? I made all the wrong choices. You know, and you think, well, the next one will be better. And you put it aside and you go on to the next film. But if you're there and you're thinking, well, I can't wait till the critics see this. I can't wait till the public breaks the doors down and the box office records, you know, then you're dependent for your enjoyment on other people's taste and other people's opinions, and I'm not interested in their opinion. The first film I ever worked on, What's New Pussycat, was a loathsome film. I hated the experience. I was only the script writer. They took my script and mangled it. They put the film out. The film was a big hit. It made the most money of any comedy to its time at that time. And I got no joy out of it. I was embarrassed by it. I hated it. So you don't get joy from critical success or public success. You get joy from realizing the work of art that you were trying to make when you were laying on your bed writing the script. And then all of a sudden you visualize it and you've made it happen. You spent, you know, $15 million or something, or more sometimes, and made it happen. And you say, gee, I'm proud of this. I had that feeling. I very rarely have that feeling. I usually want to shoot myself. But I had that feeling with Match Point. When I was finished, I thought, my God, everything went right. I got the actors I wanted. You know, this 19-year-old girl, Scarlett Johansson, is amazing. The guys are great.
You said it even rained when you needed it to rain on set. Everything
I couldn't make a mistake. I couldn't screw myself even if I tried to. I'd show up and I needed a sunny day, I got it. I needed a rainy day, I got it. It was just amazing. And the film came out, I actually liked it. I thought, yes, this is what I wrote, and it's up there on the screen. So that was a big thrill for me. That rarely happens. It may have been just one out of 48 or something. But it did happen.
In the documentary I made on you, you said something in that film that a lot of people have responded to and they couldn't believe, which is that when you did Manhattan and you saw the finished film, you thought that it was unreleasable and told United Artists at the time.
No, I was afraid it was releasable.
Oh, you were afraid
that was the problem. I finished Manhattan, and I looked at it, and I thought, oh, God, this is my sixth film or seventh film, I didn't know, eighth film, I can't remember what, but if I can't do better at this point in my life, I should not make films. And I went to United Artists and said, don't put this movie out, and I'll make a film for you for nothing, for no money. I won't take any salary. Just don't put this out. And they said, what are you, nuts? We like the film. We bankrolled this film with a bank loan, and we're paying interest. We're not going to just dump the film. We've got to pay the bank back. And it looks like a good film to us. And I said, oh, please don't. And they said, no, sorry. We can't do that. We have, investor, but you can't. So they put it out, and the film was an enormous success. And so I shut up and pretended to like it,
But this is what I'm getting at, because that film is, again, a very beloved film among people who have followed your career. So when people have said to me, how can Woody be that far off? This is my guess about it, and you can tell me if I'm right, is that when you shoot a picture, because you've written the script, you have in your mind what you want to accomplish. And let's say what you want to accomplish is a goal that's up here.
Yeah.
And then you look at the finished film and you feel it's only here. You're sort of obsessed with that gap between what you meant to do and what you did, versus there are some films like Purple Rose of Cairo, Match Point, where you said, I want to do this, and the finished product sort of matched
Very
your
close,
expectations. So is that why
that's
you
it,
can
yeah.
look at a picture like Manhattan and think you missed the mark?
Yeah, well, when I finished Purple Rose, I thought, my God, I hit very close to what, when I was in my bed. I write on my bed, and when I'm, that's what I wrote, and here it is, and it looks like what I was dreaming of when I wrote it. Whereas Manhattan, I missed what I was going for. Same thing with Hannah and her sisters.
Wow.
I'm not saying it's a terrible film or a bad, I'm not here to knock my films, but for me personally, I missed. It was too, too streakily at the end, too bailed out. I bailed myself out. I'm sitting watching this Marx Brothers movie, and I'm thinking that life is okay and I shouldn't commit suicide, but that's not true.
If you were anyone but the maker of these films, I would debate you on each one. I would, at a dinner conversation, I would argue with anybody who said that Hannah and Her Sisters was anything short of a great picture. So it's funny that it would be you. What about Crimes and Misdemeanors, which is another picture that people just think is a masterpiece?
Crimes and Misdemeanors, I like better. I got more criticism on Crimes and Misdemeanors, but I like that better than Hannah because it was because I had a bleak message, and I didn't back off my message. At the end of Hannah, Michael Caine is back with Hannah, but that's not the original ending I wrote. The original ending I wrote was that he's longs for Barbara Hershey, and he's terribly unhappy and doesn't have the courage to act on it and doesn't get it. I had a very bleak ending. I can't remember all the details. It was years ago, but what happened was you were going along like here, and my ending dropped off the table. I didn't earn the tragedy or the pathos that I was going for. It was unearned in the movie. So when the ending happened, it fell off the table. So I had to juice up the ending a little bit so you didn't get the feeling, oh God, I'm watching this for an hour and a half, and this is where he dumps me at the end. So I buoyed the end. I reshot. Whereas in the other one, Crimes and Misdemeanors, I was able to do it. He kills the girl, and he gets away with it, and he's fine. It's not on his conscience. If I killed somebody, it would be on my conscience, and I think on the conscience of most people, and thank God. But Marty Landau, is in a tough position, and the only way out that he could see was to kill the girl. He has her killed, and he doesn't have a terrible life after. He's able to, be happily married and be with his family and have his profession, and I believe that's a more accurate picture of life. People commit horrible crimes all the time, and in the movies they must pay the penalty because of the censor. But in real life, people do horrible, horrible things, including killing people, and they get away with it, and they don't live shattered by remorse or haunted by visions. They're fine. They're able to kill somebody or do something equally terrible or almost equally terrible to them, and they have no guilt. And so I felt less compromised on that picture, less compromising on that picture. Whereas in Hannah's Sisters, I felt I was not skillful enough to earn the sad ending I originally wrote.
So it's really the upbeat ending about that film that keeps it from being fully successful in your eyes. Of Hannah.
Yeah. It was the ending that...
Well, it's interesting because both Annie Hall and Manhattan, which again are sort of these massively cherished films, both have these endings that are neither happy nor sad, but sort of split the difference. They're kind of bittersweet. And in Annie Hall, we have that closing line about we need the eggs, which everybody remembers, and you don't get back together with her, but life goes on. In Manhattan, there's that sweet ending with Mariel Hemingway, you have to have a little faith in people. And both those seem to end on just kind of the right note, that audiences walked out of...
My inclination is toward tragedy.
Right.
That I would have preferred to... I should have been a 19th... I was born in the last month of 35. I should have been a 30s playwright, one of those... WPA playwrights or something, because my inclination has always been to tragedy. you'll see when you see Wonder Wheel. Wonder Wheel is quite a serious picture, and I'm bailed out of my mistakes by these brilliant performances by Kate Winslet and Justin Timberlake and Jim Belushi and
Juno Temple.
And Juno Temple. Yeah, the four of them are just amazing, and so I look good, I think, because of them. My inclination was always to be. I had always wanted to be Ingmar Bergman. I had never wanted to be a comic filmmaker, but I was cursed with a comic gift, and so I made comedies, and they worked. And after you make 2 or 3, people pigeonhole you as that. And so it was very hard for me to get any traction when I made Interiors, my first serious picture, because, one, I wasn't very skillful. I was trying my best. I didn't want to compromise and make one of those sellout Hollywood pictures that are quote-unquote serious, but they're not really serious. I was going for all the marbles of heavy European-style serious film, and I don't feel that I was really fully ready for it or up to it, but that's the kind of thing that interested me. But every time I made a comedy, it would be successful, or almost every time, and would be a hit, and people would laugh, and I had that knack of making people laugh. But I never wanted that. So in my comedies, there's always a sad element that runs through them. So no matter which comedy or romance it is, Vicky Cristina or the ones you mentioned, there's Annie Hall and Manhattan, there's always a kind of business. Look at the Purple Rose of Cairo. Mia, who played that so beautifully, is sitting in the movie theater at the end, a pathetic figure. I always go back. When I did Take the Money and Run, I had a different ending on it. The ending was that I got machine gunned to death, and I shot a very brilliant thing, because it was my first movie, and every time I was dying as a machine gun, there were cuts from my life. It was wonderful, and but when they saw it, when the company Palomar saw it, they said, "God, you can't end the picture like that." We're laughing and laughing, and then suddenly this thing dropped off the moon. There's this, and I didn't see it, but apparently when we showed the picture to audiences, they felt the same way that the suits felt, and I just had not earned that ending with the picture. But my tendency is always to be serious, if not tragic. If I had my druthers, I would be making many serious films. But people are always pushing me to make funny ones, and the funny ones occur to me more readily, and I'm more at home with them, and but that's the tragedy of my life.
Let's delve into another faction of your life outside of movies. Music plays a big part in your life, and you still play with your jazz band, or the Eddie Davis Jazz Band at the Carlisle here in New York on Monday nights. And you're about to embark on a tour of Europe in July, early July. There are a number of cities that you're hitting. Now, you've done this before. When you and the Eddie Davis Jazz Band tour Europe, or even make stops in the United States, is it your suggestion, let's do this, or does somebody come to you and say, look, you have some downtime here, how do you want to fill it, or what inspires these tours?
Well, what happened was, I always was interested in New Orleans jazz, but authentic New Orleans jazz. If you hear the wrong kind of New Orleans jazz, you frame it in your mind as what people call Dixieland, and you think of peanut music with straw hats and striped jackets, but it isn't. There's a real New Orleans music that originated in New Orleans, very authentic, very beautiful, but very special. I'm interested in it. Most people don't have the slightest interest in the same way that I am not interested in Gregorian chants. people are not interested in the kind of music that interests me. It's a very special kind of thing, very authentic and very beautiful. So I started playing that kind of music on the clarinet strictly for fun. I'm a terrible musician, but I do it for fun. And we did it weekends.
I would debate you on that too.
We
but let's move
do
on.
it in the houses, in our living room. And then the guy said, why don't we do this in front of people instead of always sitting in a circle in a living room doing it for each other? Let's go do it, for people and with an audience out there. I didn't care about that. I had had years of being in front of people as a stand-up comic, and I didn't need to go play for people, but they wanted to, so I said, fine. So we played for people, and then somebody said, why don't we go on a tour? And I said, nobody will come, but I was wrong. They turned out in abundance and opera houses and huge auditoriums all over Europe to hear us. Now, the truth of the matter is, this is not false modesty, I'm a terrible musician. I don't have a good ear, I don't have good rhythm, I have great enthusiasm, great affection. And the people that come, for the guys in the band are great, and I hide in them. The people that come because they see me in the movies. They've seen me in the movies, and they don't know the first thing about New Orleans music. They just hear that I'm there, and they want to come and say hello from the movies. I could be playing at my best. I'm not very good, and I'm rarely at my best. But it doesn't matter. They have a different kind of experience. It's like years ago, John L. Sullivan, the first heavyweight champion, used to go around acting in plays, and people would come to plays, and he was a terrible actor. He was a great boxer, but a terrible actor. But they'd come and turn out en masse to see him, not for the actor he was, but for the hero he was in the ring. Me, they come to see because they liked Annie Hall, or they liked my movies. But if I had to make a living as a clarinet player, I would be dead. But I'm not dead because I have this extra thing. So it's a crime that these great musicians, there are some great musicians out there who can't get an audience as big as I get, when in fact they're serious and artists and brilliant geniuses, but I get a bigger audience, on the cheap because they like my movies, or they've seen my movies and they want to see me. So we play, and I give it my all. I mean, I practice every day, and I try and stay authentic and uncompromising. We don't play any, crowd-pleasing stuff. We don't, get out there and play when the Saints go marching in. And, we play blues, hymns, ragtime, whorehouse music, stuff that was authentically New Orleans, and we play it in the New Orleans style as best we can. And so I don't feel that I'm a sellout. I'm doing the best I can. Unfortunately, that best, is, at best mediocre, at best.
But there is something about that kind of New Orleans jazz music that is so upbeat in a way. I mean, I've been to a number of your concerts at the Carlisle and when you've toured. And even if you go in not knowing much about that kind of music, taking your estimation of your own abilities aside, just the music that comes out of that band, you really do walk out just feeling good because
it's lively, it's enervating. It's blues. There's a lot of ragtime music and marches and hymns, and the tunes are likable and they're played with enthusiasm. And the guys are good. The guys in the band are good. I mean, they are not. Some of them are professional musicians, and a couple of them are not professional musicians, but could be if they chose to. I could not be, but I'm full of enthusiasm and full of energy, and and I keep up my end of the bargain. But and you're right, the audience enjoys it. I mean, if you come in to a concert, what it's about an hour and a half or something, and you've had it for the rest of your life. You've seen me, and you've heard the music, and the music is lively and entertaining and authentic. You're hearing good blues and good ragtime and good hymns and authentic tunes, Jelly Roll Morton, King Oliver tunes, Bunk Johnson. You're hearing good music from that point of view. But that's it. My guess is that you'll never come to another concert. That will have satiated your interest, and you will have enjoyed it. But you won't be champing at the bit to come and hear me again.
Despite the fact that people do come again and again. Let me, I'm told we need to wrap it up, so let me ask you in summation. You and I are probably among the last people who read a newspaper every day. I read it at breakfast and lunch.
Yeah,
Everyone else is on their
Me
iPads,
too.
right? But either way, we're getting, the daily reports of this sort of surrealistic narrative coming out of Washington, D.C. So let's just say hypothetically that the world doesn't get it together, and God forbid somebody pushes the wrong button, and we get news that we've got 5 minutes left. You're 81 now. You're very good 81, by the way. My family, if we make it to 80, it's not a pretty picture. So this is
all luck. It's all
yeah,
luck.
and genes. I know.
I mean, I lived in an apartment house in New York where guys 65 years old would come on the elevator with walkers, and my father was 90 and he'd come bouncing on, but just the opposite happens. Then it's pure luck. We could conclude this conversation. I could not get up from this chair, and there would be an anecdote about me dying. You can go like that. So, what can you say about that? You just have to close your eyes and go forward.
All right. So at 81, you got a few minutes to review your life. What have you learned? What do you make of the past 81 years? Have you come away with any sort of wisdom or any summation about what we're all doing here and what the point is?
Wisdom.
Yeah.
I figured making the same film same way. I would say if I had to say any wisdom, I would say don't ever order the guacamole special in a Polish restaurant. I think I've learned that over the years. That's really the only thing I could teach my kids or impart of any value to anybody.
I'll take it. I'll remember that, and so will the 6 people who are still with us. Well, this wasn't terribly painful, was it? I mean, you got through it. You got through your
Only
first
for the people listening.
Facebook experience. All right, so join us again next week on Woody Allen's Facebook page. Thanks for doing this, although I had nothing to do with it, so I'm thanking you on behalf of the people who talked you into it. And I got through about 10% of what I wanted to cover, and there are many, many questions that came in we didn't get to.
I talk too much, right?
You talk just the right amount, just we had
loquacious.
too little time. But so who knows, maybe you'll be talked into doing this again. Maybe hell will freeze over, we'll see. Anyway, thank you everybody who joined us for this, and this will be archived. You can continue to, if you did miss it, well, if you did miss it, you wouldn't be hearing me. Anyway, tell your friends.
If you archive it, they'll have a chance to miss it again.
To miss it again, yes.
Yeah.
You can miss it as many times as you want over years and years. Anyway, Bob Weide and Woody Allen signing off. Thank you.